Excellent. So welcome, everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community Call with Microsoft speakers. It is November 26, 2024. My name is Cesar Juvonen. I'm a Principal Product Manager in Microsoft 365 platform areas, working together with our Power Platform people as well. Now, like typically, we have great demos waiting for today in this call. So we'll recap some of the general assets, what are available for you to get started in Microsoft Cloud, in Power Platform, or in Microsoft 365. We'll have a latest news across Microsoft Blogs, and oh boy, it was a busy week last week. So I actually stopped collecting the links at some point, but all of the main links are going to be shared in the chat as well. There was so many announcements last week across the Microsoft 365 Power Platform and Azure and all of that stuff. So a lot of cool stuff, but it also we want to share those in here. So if you're interested, you can check them out, because there's so much to mention and so much to cover within those announcements. Now, after that, we'll have a group picture time with Together Mode, which is a great option as well. So we do that again. We're ready to enable the camera if you want to join on that one. And then we go to the actual stars of the day. So today we'll have John Miller talking about the introduction of Microsoft Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. So last week, John was talking about the general Microsoft Teams Toolkit, and now we're going to actually deep dive more on the Visual Studio Code, what's available there, how does it actually work. Then Eric is going to show us on how to build a writing coach declarative agent for Microsoft 365 Copilot. So what is declarative agent again, what is Copilot, and how do we actually start doing these things? Great demo to cover as well. And then last, but not definitely the least, least, is Paolo talking about implementing single sign-on with Viva Connection bot-powered ACs with .NET framework. So great option if you have an existing investments in the Teams bot framework. Teams bots, you can actually expose those to be also available in the Microsoft Viva Connection, making them employee platform aware, which is a great cool scenario as well. And thank you, Paolo, on that one. Now, we have a lot of assets available for you to get started on the different areas. We have our YouTube channel where we publish at least one video every single day, every single business day. Even on this week, Thursday and Friday, we're going to publish videos. So it depends on what is a business day and what is not a business day, but typically not in the weekends. But a lot of cool stuff getting published on Microsoft Community Learning videos. So you want to subscribe there today. We do have our LinkedIn page and group for discussions and LinkedIn. A lot of open source assets available in multiple GitHub organizations. But as it might be a bit difficult to find a relevant sample for you, we have then the sample galleries, which are really surfacing specific samples from Microsoft and from community, making it super easy to find the relevant reference point or inspiration for whatever you're building. A lot of URLs, remember, it's actually one, which is AKMS Community Home, from where you can find all of the relevant details for all of this stuff, which is really cool. Now, we do have a lot of community calls, so we do execute at least 2 community calls every single week with certain exceptions. So this is the Tuesday 8 a.m. Pacific time community call, where we focus on Microsoft 365 and Power Platform topics. And typically, this is done by Microsoft speakers with certain exceptions every now and then. Now, this call will be on a holiday break, 2 weeks this time. So on December 24th and December 31st, we will not have this call. We'll probably have somebody joining and basically showing a slide where we say, call is not happening this day, because those are typical holidays all around the world as well. Now, we'll be back then on 7th of January on the Tuesday call. The holiday break will not impact the Power Platform monthly community call and Office Add-ins community call, where we, especially in Power Platform, community demos. Office Add-ins is more Microsoft demos. And then we have our 7 a.m. Thursday series, which is either Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call, or Viva Connection SharePoint Framework community call. So a lot of community power demos in both of them, showing how people adapted to technology and capabilities what we as a Microsoft are rolling out. A lot of interesting demos in all of this. Now, you can download recurrent invites as AKMS community calls, and you can always see the upcoming agendas at the meetup service. I think we have 1,800 or 1,700 already people in there. Great way of staying up to date on what are the demos next week. So we can in advance plan your week ahead if they're cool demos which you want to see live. Now, for a lot of these calls, we do welcome community demos, as mentioned. Super easy way to sign up. You'll just go to the AKMS community request demo form, fill in the form, and we will contact you and get you scheduled on the right and suitable call depending on your topic. So this is a great way if you're interested on, hey, I want to be an MVP. Well, it's a great way actually getting visibility and exposure. And if you're an MVP, this is actually a really great way to get those renew points, which will count for your MVP renewals as well. So really easy option. I think all of us are doing and learning new things on day-to-day basis, and then doing a 10 to 15 minute demo, sharing what you have learned or what you have built is super, super cool as well. By the way, doesn't have to be open source, doesn't have to be rocket science. Every single scenario counts. So we do welcome everybody to do these demos as well. So definitely the getting started demos are the most valuable ones for a lot of our community as well. Now, getting started on assets on Microsoft Cloud. So if you go learn Microsoft.com, there's a lot of modules, free modules and material available for you to get started in Microsoft 365 or in Power Platform. So please check out those free material, free training material, and videos and all of that from one centralized location. Super, super cool and easy to get started. We also mentioned already our sample gallery. This is a really cool location. So rather than forcing you to go to a random set of repos all around the GitHub and finding the relevant sample for you, we want to make it super easy for you to find a relevant sample for inspiration or for guidance across the samples which are contributed by Microsoft or by the community. So AKMS Community Samples is the portal. You can use text boxes, filters, all of that stuff to find the coolest sample, what you're looking for. Great option as well. Then as you find the sample, you might be wondering on, okay, wait a minute, how do I get started on all of this stuff? And that's why we have our Sharing is Caring initiative. Actually, last time we had an event yesterday, right, David?
We did. Yes, Bessa, thank you. Hot dog. It was fun. Yes, that's right. Hot dog. I said that. But it was yesterday, which means that we're going to have new sessions scheduled for December. And if you're saying, well, what do these sessions include? We walk you through how to contribute into the community and among other topics. The most popular right now is how to start using GitHub and contribute to samples and use some of those samples. So we'll be getting a new session scheduled for late December. Be on the lookout for that. We know folks have some time off. If you're out on vacation, that's okay too. We'll set them up again in January, trying to be consistent. So they are safe space opportunities to ask any questions. We had a lot of collaboration yesterday, and some folks and friends in the community submitted their first ever pull requests, which means that they also got recognized. So if you would like to sign up, keep an eye out for aka.ms/sharingiscaring. We will get those sessions scheduled and let you know once we do. And then once you do contribute, we want to recognize you for the amazing work that you're doing with our recognition program. Alive and well, those badges are powered by Credly, which means they are official and accredited. You can put them on your LinkedIn profile, associate them to your blog, put them on your resume. They are real, and let your manager and your clients know that you are making a difference in the community. Lots of opportunity to earn these badges this time of year. Lots of fun fun badges that are available among samples and Season of Getting and Snippet Sorcerer. A number of ways to get involved. Absolutely free, by the way. We cover all the costs for you. Credly is a business. They do charge, but we cover the costs. So please get involved. aka.ms/community/recognition. Vesa, back to you in the Finland studios.
Thank you, LAX or Los Angeles and Hollywood Studios with David. I have to say, Snippet of Sorcerer is really nice looking. That's so beautiful, beautiful badge. Definitely, I want to have one of those. So I will need to contribute with some of the snippets, definitely. Now, quick recap on all of the upcoming events which are happening even before the holiday break. We have the Stockholm ESPC Stockholm 24 coming. So that's a SharePoint European Conference, SharePoint Microsoft 365 Azure Conference coming up next week. I know that there's still some tickets left on this one. So if you are like last minute, like, wait a minute, I want to see other people in the community, great option definitely to jump into. And you can even save 150 euros with the discount code of Microsoft 365 Core. We also have the European Collaboration Summit and the sister summits, European AI and Cloud Summit and European Biz App Summit coming in Düsseldorf in 26th to 28th of May. Great opportunity of get together in the community. Great venue as well. We're looking into having more than 3,000 attendees on this one in spring. Then on top of that, we have the TechCon 365, so Seattle, Atlanta, and Dallas, starting from June 23rd to 27th in Seattle, then Atlanta and Dallas following up on later 2025. Great options as well. But even before 2025, there's a lot of events still happening in December. So if you go to communitydays.org, you can see all of the different events happening all around the world, from Hungary, Oslo, Florida, and so on. Get together with the community, seeing people people in person. Some of these events are free. Some of them have a small fee on them. Some of them might be remote as well, so you can actually join them online if you cannot actually fly over or travel over within the city. But please have a look on communitydays.org. Now, quick recap, as mentioned, last week's news. That was a lot of news. So I stopped actually collecting the URLs at some point because we ran out of space within the slide. But there was so many news. Obviously, the book of news within Ignite contains the detailed news for all of this stuff. But there's a lot of interesting stuff being and additional details covered in almost all of this blog post. So if you really want to be up to date on all of the great announcements on Microsoft 365 and Power Platform from Ignite, double check the list of links, which we copied on the chat right now. Or afterwards, if you're watching the recording, we will have most of those links actually in the video description as well, so you can easily access them from there. Now, a few other things, just to recap and what is available. Copilot Prompts is a great community initiative run by Rabia Williams from our Cloud Advocates team, collecting community contributed Copilot prompts, showcasing the art of possible with the Copilot. It's great option to go to the BMP prompt library, have a look on how can we actually use the Copilot for the benefit of the users. And we do have this prompt of the week, which is this week coming from RC Gomez, which is around Office scripts and asking the Copilot on helping on creating the Office script based on the business requirements. Copilot is obviously capable of helping there as well. So you will get a starting point, which you can then adjust based on the business requirements. But really great example of actually not using just for productivity, but also if I need to write some scripts or PowerShell, even even PowerShell, Copilot can actually help there. Referring Todd Clint, who's in the call, for anybody who's like, why is it saying Todd? Anyway. Also, we are collecting feedback related on Teams tooling. So the Teams tooling team, the product group, would be highly interested on getting your feedback. What do you like about the toolings? What should be improved? So if you go AKMS Teams tooling survey, there's a small survey waiting over there, which we will be then, or they will be accessing the PM team, and then we will adjust the tooling based on your feedback. So please take advantage of that as well. And then it is actually time to go to the picture time. So now let me flip to camera mode. Let me enable the camera and adjust the settings a bit. And we will soon see what are we at on one setting. If you enable the camera, it will be popping into the screen in a second now. Here we go. We are pixel perfect today, which is great. So the fiber is working. I can see Eric and David on the back row. A lot of other familiar faces as well. We do have 50 seats in the room. Oh, there's Boba Fett even in there, Fernando. That's scary. That's good. So we do have 50 seats in the room. So let's wait for a few more seconds before we start recording. If we get more people here. Oh, I haven't enabled my camera. Let me do that. So I'll get there as well. Where did I go? Am I getting there? Yes, here I am. Excellent. So let me put the recording on and let's do some hand waving and we'll capture a GIF animation and that and share it in social media. Thank you everybody for joining. Awesome to have you on a call. Good to see the smiling faces. Excellent. Awesome. Thanks everybody for joining. Really cool. Always a fun. Always good. Always good to see the smiling faces and the different community members in these calls. Cool. We are right on time, which is great. So next we'll move to the actual stars of the day. We'll start with John, move to Eric, and then Paolo. Everybody has 15 minutes. I think we can make this happen. John, I can see you on a call.
Yep, thanks. Let me share my
Audio
screen.
is good. Yes.
Okay.
And screen sharing has started. Yep, all good. Take it away.
Okay, so a quick reminder, if you weren't able to join me last week, I'm doing a series on Teams Toolkit. So these are our developer tools for building Teams apps and extensions from Microsoft 365. And so last week, I talked an introduction to the Teams Toolkit, and I'll show you a recap of that in a second. So just a glimpse of what I'm doing. Last week was an intro, and I'll recap that. And then today, I'm going to make that a little more real by showing you how to apply all of that in VS Code. And then in the future, I'll talk about VS, our CLI, deploying to Azure, how to use the CI/CD with our CLI, and put some question marks here because I'll happy to have your feedback with anything that you want to see in future parts of the series. So just to recap, if you weren't able to join me last week, Teams Toolkit is a set of things for developers. And these are the things that I think are interesting for you to know about. So it's project templates, samples, documentation. We have a task runner to help automate a lot of the tedious setup needed. You can group those configurations in what we call environments. We have infrastructure templates so you can host these tab apps or bot apps in Azure, and we use Bicep for that. We have a simulator-like tool for doing local development that we call the Teams App Test tool. And then we have a design time previewer that we call the adaptive card previewer. So you can design adaptive cards, which are the things you can use to display kind of UI inside of your chat elements for agents and bots. And then we have some workflow templates and Azure DevOps templates, and we also help you set up dev tunnels so you can debug these things. So there's a lot going on, and I only have 15 minutes. So I'm going to show you what this looks like inside of VS Code, and we'll just do something real quick so you can get an idea of what we're talking about. So let me switch over to VS Code. First thing you'll want to do, if you haven't already, if you want to get started, you can just install Teams Toolkit. It's an extension in the marketplace. So here's what that looks like. So you can go ahead and install that. And then once you install it, you will get this icon on the right, or on the left here, sorry. Let's see, I did this little thing. So right here is the Teams Toolkit icon. So you click on that and you're presented with some UI to help you get started. First thing that's interesting is you have a place to manage your accounts. So you have a place to choose your M365 account and your Azure account. Your M365 account is where you want to run and debug these Teams apps. So it gives us a hint on how to launch Teams and which tenant you want to launch that in and when you want to debug this. And then Azure account is not necessary to get started, but if you want to use our provisioning templates to host these things in Azure, then you can use your Azure account, let you select your subscription, etc. When you want to get started. So first step is when you first install this, you'll have a blue button here to like create an app, but I've already opened a project, so the menu looks slightly different, but it's still here. Create a new app. This is for our templates. So I mentioned earlier, the first thing on that list, I think, was project templates, samples, and documentation. We have a list of templates, kind of a wizard-like way for you to pick how you want to get started with building these apps. And we have a couple opinions here for you to get started, like agents, custom engine agents, and then some more traditional Teams apps like bots, tabs, message extensions. And you can also build Outlook add-ins. So there's a couple sub things. You can do notifications, chats. You can just do basic stuff if you just want to see like a bare bones example. And that's what I'll show you today because it's pretty simple. We also have all the agent templates. So you can create chatbots, chatting over your data, like to connect with Azure OpenAI, et cetera. So we have lots of different ways for you to get started building these things. I just chose a basic bot, and that's what I have open here. So if I go back to my file explorer, close this. All of our projects have a similar shape. So all of our templates and samples, and you have a VS Code folder, which is where we put all the defaults for you to run tasks and set up debugging. So you'll have all that set up inside of our templates. The app package is where we put the Teams app manifest. So if you've done any development with Teams, you might be familiar with this, but if not, this is what you define a Teams app with. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here by default for a bot. And outside of the app package, we have environments. So this is one of the things I mentioned in the toolkit is we have a way for you to group configuration sets. And by default, we give you a couple opinions here. We have a local, we have one remote environment for Azure, which we default to the naming of dev. And then we also have one for using our simulator, which is called test tool. And these are just ways for you to configure settings for the cloud resources that are needed to run these apps for the toolkit. So for example, if we look at my local environment, I've already run this just to make sure it would work for you folks. So these values are already filled in, but by default, these values would be empty. So we need a bot, we need a Teams app ID, we need a tunnel for these things. And the tenant is based on my account that I logged in, et cetera. So these are all values that the toolkit can help you automate. And I mentioned we have a composable automation kind of system for that. And that's expressed in these YAML files. So I'll start with local because I think that's the most easy to understand. And so local is, I want to press F5 or start debugging inside of VS Code. So there's some things I want to do so that way my app works when I'm start debugging. And we give you a way to express what the toolkit does during those steps. And we kind of broke it out into two stages. Basically, we have a provision stage and a deploy stage. And the provision stage, if you look at this, let me bump this up a little bit. The provision stage will create a Teams app. It will create an Entra ID app, which is needed for a bot. So these are all dependencies of running these things. I see a question in the chat. Do we have Vite templating for this? Yeah, the latest pre-release of the toolkit just switched from Create React App to Vite for tab templates. So yes, we have Vite support for that now. And I'll get to the other questions then in a minute. They're kind of scrolling a little fast. The next step in the automation is to create a bot framework registration, validate the app manifest, and basically have a bunch of predefined actions to automate whenever you need to run a provision task. And then in the deploy step, I'm going to run npm install for this project. And then if we look into the example code for my bot, so this is all like bot framework code for handling a bot. There's a couple things in here. I think it's right. Yeah, where I set up, let me zoom out a little bit. Where I set up the configuration for bot framework, I'm using this config object. And if we look at that real quick, you can see it's going to rely on some environment variables here. That's how this template's set up. So these environment variables are, the values of those are created by the toolkit. So now that my app runtime needs some things that my Teams toolkit environment created. So this is a very common approach. So we have some actions to do that for you. And that's what this action does. So basically going to say, hey, take the bot ID from my local environment, which is in here. And I want you to copy it to a file that we've called local configs, but a lot of folks might do something, oh, it's not iron, might do something like env, and put that value in there. So when I run this, you can see here's the local configs. It just copies this. And then you can use .env or whatever that package is called for injecting runtime environment variables. I think by default, we're using this package env.command. So you can see just going to inject this into my npm, like into my runtime. So I have this access to that. So the templates are all set up to do this. So that's how the automation works. And whenever I press F5, let me undo that so this continues to work. Next thing you can do is choose your debug target. So we have all this set up for you, so it's easy to run and debug. The test tool is what the default is for this project template. So if we just click start, when I do this, it's going to go through the test tool automation steps, which is going to install the test tool, run npm and command or npm install, and then set up some environment variables for the runtime. And then this launched over here. So let me bring this over for you so you can see. This is what the test tool looks like. So this is the simulator-like environment I was talking about. And what's nice about this is you don't need to have any cloud resources for this. So there's no bot framework registration, there's no Entra app IDs, there's no accounts needed. This is really just like a bot emulator, but we've tuned it to be, or to give you some UX that's very similar to Teams. So you can get a little closer of a feel of how your Teams agents or bots are going to interact. So you have options to, what does it look like to chat with it in a personal context versus a group chat context, and a team context. So you'll get some of the UX that's similar. So you can invoke it like with ats. You can mock Teams activities like installing a bot, adding users, or you can define a custom activity to trigger. So you can kind of mock these things and test them. And then there's also a whole way for you to express like dummy data. Like this user's name is Alex Wilbur. And I think there's also some other dummy data in here, but it's all expressed through, I think, a YAML file. And so you can customize all the data here so you can mock things for users. But it just gives you a way to talk to your bot, and you could see this is running. You could set breakpoints in here and debug just a conversation without having to worry about getting into Teams yet, which is another layer of complexity and requires permissions and accounts and things like that. So the test tool is a good option to get started, but eventually you're probably going to want to run inside of Teams. So we have that set up for you as well. And that's going to rely on this account. So I have already logged in with my N365 account, and I can debug inside of Teams. And what that's going to do now is it's going to run the steps in here, because I'm going to run in Teams. So I actually need real things. I need a Teams app ID. I need the Entra app ID. I need bot framework. And then I have some other optional steps like validating my manifest, make sure I didn't make a typo, zip my map package, upload it to Teams developer portal so it appears on the platform. And then this it will launch in a browser session by default. So I'll go ahead, and this is all just the normal Teams installation experience. And one of the things the Toolkit does for you during this experience as well is it'll check, make sure that you have custom app upload enabled. So this is to let you know if you can actually install apps. So of course I do because I've set this up. So here's my bot. Let me get it a little smaller here. And this is now running inside of Teams. So I can actually go through my bot framework experience. I can chat with it. I can test out what it actually is going to do inside of Teams. And then this is also connecting to the VS Code debugger. So I can set breakpoints and debug this directly inside this browser session. Of course, I've access to all the browser tools and everything if I need to use those. So that's what the Toolkit gives you by default. Some other things that we have are the adaptive card previewer. That's this extension. So you can install this and you will get basically real-time previews of an adaptive card. So if you open an adaptive card JSON file, you'll be able to click preview and see a preview side by side. I don't think I have one inside this project. Otherwise I would show you. No, there's not one in this project, but you can investigate that if you're doing adaptive cards, and it live updates on the right side and gives you a way to switch between whether light mode, dark mode, or high contrast mode. And the cool thing about that is it's using the same rendering stack as Teams. So if you're doing adaptive cards, it's the only thing available right now that is using the same rendering stack as Teams. So you'll know that it's the most accurate representation of what an adaptive card is going to look like once it's inside of Teams, without actually having to run it inside of Teams, which is nice. And so let me just make sure that I didn't miss any of my bullet points. So we talked about the templates, the task runner, which is the YAML files, and the environments, which are just environment files, but you can group them into sets. The infrastructure files, I didn't get into those. We'll go into those in a future series on how to use the infrastructure files to host this thing in Azure. So right now I just showed you how to run the test tool and how to run inside of Teams. We didn't actually host anything in Azure. Everything was running locally. And then the adaptive card previewer and the GitHub workflow and DevOps pipeline, that'll be another future series on how to do CI/CD. Dev tunnels is one thing I didn't show you, but it does happen. That's where these tunnel endpoints come from. So we're using VS Dev tunnels, and that's all. What's cool about Toolkit is a lot of this stuff is you don't need to know it right away, but once you want to customize something, you can start peeling back the layers. And a lot of it is, available for you to customize. So as your project evolves, there's less of a black box than there used to be. We've tried to make as much customizable as possible. So between the YAML files and just using familiar things like VS Code tasks, you can go through and see what these are doing. Like we have some steps here to validate, make sure ports are available for you to do debugging. And we have things for you to start the test tool. And somewhere in here, I thought there was a tunnel. Yeah, there's a start local tunnel task. Yeah, so you can see here what it's doing. Just calling another task that we have in our toolkit to fill in these endpoints or these environment variables with the results from running the dev tool to create a tunnel. So that's how that's set up. And I think that's pretty much my time. So if you have any questions, let me go back to my slides. If you want to get started, you can go to this aka.ms/ttk. That'll take you, I believe, to the GitHub repo or the documentation. I can't remember where I pointed that to, but it'll take you to a place to get started. And you can join me next time where I'll show, I think it'll be on on December 10th. I'll talk about Intro to Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio. So if you're a .NET developer, you might be interested in seeing how we use Visual Studio to do similar things. All right, thanks for listening.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, John. On that one, really, really cool. And it's such a great tool. It's so much new stuff every single month on the Teams Toolkit. So thank you for covering this. Really, really cool. Now, right on schedule. So Eric is next on the line. We're going to talk about a building a writing coach declarative agent for Microsoft 365 Copilot. This is a live demo, which is available actually in GitHub for anybody to get access. Eric, screen sharing is starting. Excellent, and yes. I can hear you fine. Take it away.
Perfect. Okay. Hey everyone. So Vesa invite me to lend some of the declarative agent we built for the wave 2 of Copilot M365. So we did release 5 first-party declarative agent, and on the fly we decided as well to open source them, giving the opportunity to help the community to onboard on that approach where you coach Copilot with crafted instruction and can enable empowering your user to achieve different scenario based on your needs. So the writing coach is a very simple scenario built in the simple precept that it should be simple to deploy and autonomous. So it really mostly relies on crafted instruction on some use cases that we felt were appealing to people, like coach me writing some text, changing the tone of an email, translating some content, writing instruction, and so on. So the goal here is really show how we're doing it, but as well educating the end user by leveraging those starting prompt to use the agent. A small architecture, declarative agents are like GPTs. You bring your instruction, you bring as well capabilities, and those are passed to M365 orchestration and LLM to deliver the value. So here what you're seeing is a very simple app package that will bring that to Copilot that you leverage in a just-in-time manner. Switching to a live demo, or let me stop that. That's going to be simpler. So here is our declarative agent that we installed. So this one is installed from the web, but as Vesa was mentioning, there are open source on the community gallery and as well on the GitHub. I'll share the quick link just in a minute. So you can as well sideload, tune them, and improve them based on your NV here. So here is the 6 starter prompt that we decide to go with, and you can come up with your question. Let's say, hey, I want to write a blog article, and it will leverage the LLM, which is very efficient as writing text because of its training and so on. So depending of what you're asking, the response will be different, and you will be able to leverage the instruction to influence two sides of the Copilot. It's reasoning, where it decides what to do to respond to the user, and as well is responding, how we format the content and should he prioritize one option or the other. Because John did set the bar very high, it's available in VS Code as well, and through the Teams Toolkit. So I just opened the writing coach repo that I cloned. So you'll find an instruction TXT file that the Teams Toolkit make it so much simpler to use, because technically your agent is that JSON file, and normally your instruction should be slipped into one single line of text, which is very not practical into writing and editing. So offloading that to a TXT file is very much simpler. So you focus on writing using Markdown, the instruction that you feel are important, and then so this is one way of writing those instructions. We did as well on the same time write a white paper, which is in learnmicrosoft.com, on all best write instructions based on the learning of that journey. And so you can modify it and then use the Teams Toolkit to provision that would sideload the declarative agent on your account directly, and you can live test, or you can zip the app package, and then you have that zip package that you can publish into your organization and then distribute to user if you want to go to the LOB route. So right now, as I was mentioning, all that is available through GitHub. I'll come back to talk about the few others if you're interested. There is as well an update that's coming, that's on my VS Code at the moment, where we building the localization. of those declarative agents. So soon we'll show you as well how to localize those. The good thing is you don't have to localize much because the LLM is already multilingual. So your effort is mostly on static strings that you'll find in your app package. But I'll come back probably next year once we finished ironing out those details to share that with the group. And last but not the least, a few things that are top of mind as well for me for those declarative agents. So as I was mentioning, you ask, you get your text, you can copy. No, you can as well edit in Pages, which make it super easy to have a better editing experience, and as well make it collaborative because it's loop component that's used in the background, so you can invite person in and so on. And very soon, you'll have as well the capability to use those declarative agents directly into the Office suite. So as you can see here, I can pick up my writing coach, ask him to write me some text, and then insert it directly into my Word documents. So giving you a snippet of all those declarative agents, while very simple in terms of conception, can then bring some value into the rest of M365 and not just be an agent in the Copilot view. And that's going to be it for me today. Back to you, Vesa.
Excellent. That's really, really cool. And just to recap, these are out-of-the-box coaches and agents which are available when you start using Copilot, and it's all open source.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's available on two sides. You can either go on the store by clicking the Get Agents and search for coaches, and you'll be able to find all those coaches we developed. Or you can download the source code on GitHub and then build them yourself and have fun with them.
Yeah, really, really cool. Thank you, Eric, on this one. And a great demo on showcasing how they're being built. And again, there's no APIs, no nothing behind of the scenes. It's basically instructions what we're providing in the package for the Copilot to focus on certain things.
Exactly. We did enable the semantic index. So OneDrive and the Graph Connector are enabled. So if you ask a question that's relevant and some of the data is present in your semantic index, the declarative agent will use it to improve the output, but it's not mandatory. So really depends on the scenario there.
Super easy to do, and a great way for packaging a specialized behavior of the Copilot. So really, really cool. Thank you, Eric, on the demo on this one.
No problem.
Super cool. Cool. And then we are really good on the schedule and plenty of time for Paolo as we move into a bit about code and bot framework, which might be renamed as agent framework and agent SDKs. It's complicated. The naming is always hard. But in this time, we're going to focus on Viva Connection and ACs powered by .NET, which is an interesting dimension. Right, Paolo?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, thank you, Vesa. And let's start talking about how we can implement a bot-powered ACE with .NET with single sign-on in Viva Connection. So let me briefly switch to a slide to explain you why we are talking about this topic, and then we will switch to the actual demo and see real code in action. So first of all, why bot-powered ACEs? The bot-powered ACEs are a technology that allows us to reuse our investments if we already created bots for Teams, for example, using the Teams Toolkit or using Visual Studio and .NET Framework rather than, as I said, Teams Toolkit and, for example, in Visual Studio Code, TypeScript code or something like that. So when we have a Teams bot and we want to reuse it to make it available also in the UI of Microsoft Viva Connection dashboard, we can create a bot-powered ACE. And when we do that, if we are targeting solutions where we want to have the user context, because, for example, we want to provide access to a backend API, whether it is the Microsoft Graph or a third-party API, we can do that on behalf of the user, and we can authenticate the user within the bot-powered ACE. And today, I'm going to show you how you can do that with single sign-on so that the user experience will be seamless. And from an end-user perspective, whether they are using the smartphone and tablet experience, or the mobile one, or the desktop one, they will simply be signed in, and they will simply be able to consume the functionality provided by the bot-powered ACE without any further need to do any specific action, so with a transparent single sign-on. So that said, let me move to the demo and let's see how we can do that. And first of all, let's start having a look at how a bot-powered ACE with single sign-on behaves in the Viva Connection dashboard. Here, for the sake of simplicity, I'm using the desktop experience of the Viva Connection dashboard, but you can do the same using the mobile one, as I said before. And here I have in the lower part of this dashboard, this card, this adaptive card extension for Viva Connection, which is welcoming my user. You see, welcome Paolo, and with my UPN. This card is able to do single sign-on and to retrieve my identity without any action from the user. In fact, if I edit this dashboard just for the sake of showing you what's going on, and I add a new card, of course, the demo effect is here and there. Okay, wonderful. Let me double check if the ngrok is still running. Sorry about that. Oops. And let me restart this guy. Oops. Okay, so let me see if it is just a matter of a timeout or something like that. Okay, the bot is running. And let me go back to my Viva Connection dashboard. And let me edit it. But at least you saw it running before, so it should be running again right now, and in fact it is. So sorry about that. So let me add my welcome card as I did before. And by adding this card to my dashboard, you can see that I don't need to do anything. I just see the user account of the currently connected user that is consuming my dashboard. How does it work? Well, this demo is available on GitHub and on the sample gallery as well, and you can already find the link in the chat of this meeting. And this is the demo that I'm going to show you. And here we have, first of all, the bot-powered ACE, which relies on a regular bot for Teams or for the bot framework. So if you go to Visual Studio in order to create a new solution and you choose to create an empty bot, what you will get will be the starting point for your .NET solution. Or as I said, it could be an already existing one that you simply want to update. For the sake of being quicker in this demo, I already created a solution for you, which is the one that you can also download from GitHub. And in this one, what you need to do once you have a bot already created, you need to update the bot builder SDK to at least this version 4.22.9 in order to have all of the base types that you need to have full support for single sign-on and for bot-powered ACEs. Once you have done that, you need to register a bot in Azure. That's what I already did as well. So in my Azure environment, I have a bot, an Azure bot that I created. And in the configuration of the Azure bot, you have to configure that the endpoint for managing the messages targeting the bot will have to be the actual address of your target bot implementation, which in my case is the ngrok endpoint because I'm running it locally, as you saw previously. Now, from here, you can switch to the manage password section if you have a multi-tenant or a single tenant bot. You click on manage password and you will be brought to the actual Azure Entra ID application registered and backing your bot. In that application, you can take a note about the client ID and the target tenant, which we'll reuse later in this demo. And first of all, what you need to do is to go to the authentication section for the application backing your bot. And you have to configure a web platform, and you have to provide as the redirect URL for the web application, the URL used by the bot framework to implement the actual sign-in process. Plus, you need to enable the access token and the ID tokens for this application authentication. Moreover, if you want to consume Microsoft Graph or any other API, in the API permissions, you will need to configure those permissions. So in order to have support for authentication and to get access to the user identity, I configure and granted the permission for OpenID, profile, email, and offline access. Plus, I decided to add support for the user.read delegated Microsoft Graph permission so that I can eventually use Microsoft Graph within my bot-powered ACE to read who the user is using Microsoft Graph indeed. So once you have done that, and once you have granted those permissions at tenant level, you need, in order to have support for single sign-on, you need to go to the Expose an API section of your application. And there, first of all, you need to configure a unique URI for your application following this pattern. So it has to be API as the moniker, followed by the host name that you are going to use to host, to publish your bot-powered ACE. And in case you are using a dynamic URL, you will need to update it on the go while it will get updated. Sorry. And then you will also need to provide the unique ID, the client ID of the application that you are configuring the application unique URI for. Once you have done that, you have to configure a scope. And again, I already have a scope, which has to be the access_as_user. It can be for admin and users. You can provide whatever description and display name you like. Of course, it has to be expressive and meaningful, but can be whatever you like, and you need to enable it. Once you have done that, it is really important, if you want to have single sign-on in place, that you will pre-authorize the SharePoint online application, client extensibility application, to use this app and to have this permission scope granted. So by clicking on Add a Client Application, you need to provide the unique ID of this application, which I'm going to show you what it is, and you need to select this scope. What is this application? Well, if we go to the enterprise applications in our Entra ID tenant, this is the unique ID of the SharePoint Online Web Client Extensibility application. As you can see, this application ID is the GUID that I configure right here for the pre-authorized application. So after all of these settings in Azure and in the Azure bot and in the Azure application, we can go back to our bot. So right here, this is the bot I'm using. And back in the configuration panel, we also need to configure an open authorization connection. By doing that, if you click on this button, you need to provide a name and you need to choose a target service provider, which in my scenario would be Azure Active Directory v2. Most likely they still need to update it to Entra ID, but that's what we mean, okay? When we say Azure Active Directory, it was the former name of what is nowadays Entra ID. So I have already done that again. And here you can see the configuration of my OAuth connection settings here. And here I need to provide the client ID, the secret for the application backing my bot, the token exchange URL, which will be the URL through which I can get a token for my application. If it is a multi-tenant application, like it is in my scenario, the tenant ID will be common. If it is a single tenant application, here I will need to provide the unique ID of my tenant ID. And then I need to specify the permission scopes that I want to retrieve when I will do the single sign-on and the authentication of the user. And you can even test this connection. If you click on Test Connection, you will be brought to the UI of the bot framework. And through this UI, you can simply copy the token and see that you have got a token. So the authentication flow with open authorization is working and fully functional. But just for the sake of digging into it, because we are developers and we love to see details, I guess, let me copy the value of this JWT, this JOT token, into the jwt.ms site. And we can see that this is actually the token that we have got for our application. As you can see here, that's the ID for the application that I configured for my bot, and I can see that, well, I am the user indeed, and here I can see in the scope section that I have the user.read permission scope. So this is what will happen under the cover of my bot-powered days when I will do this single sign-on, and actually when I already did it in the initial demo of this presentation. Okay, so now we are done from a configuration point of view. Now we need to wear the hat of a developer, and we need, or maybe we are already developers here, but we need to move to a Visual Studio and do some additional steps to have the fully functional single sign-on experience. So let me go back to Visual Studio. This is my bot-powered ACE solution. And first of all, let me switch to the bot itself. If we go to the bot, maybe you have already seen some of the previous videos that we recorded about how to create bot-powered ACEs, but it has to inherit from the SharePoint activity handler, which is the base type for a bot-powered ACE. And if you have already created a bot for Teams and you want to reuse that one and you cannot change the base type, you can always override the base class and redefine the behavior of the message handler and handle the messages specific to the bot-powered ACEs, which are documented on learnmikes.com. And you can find them also if you look inside the implementation of the bot SDK, bot framework SDK, sorry. So here, what I do is, in the constructor of my bot-powered ACE, I, first of all, get from the configuration, which I find in the app settings, the connection name of the connection that I configured for my bot. So back here, this name, okay? The name that I provided for the open authorization connection. It has to be provided as one of the settings for my bot application. And I need to get it inside my bot-powered ACE because I will need it in the definition of my bot-powered ACE. Then I simply define all of the UI elements for my bot-powered ACE. So specifically, I'm providing how the home card will behave in the UI. I mean, this card, let me switch back to the Viva Connection dashboard. This is the home card, the one that welcomes the user. And in fact, if we look at this one, we can see that in this home card, we have the welcome and the display name, and your UPN is, and the UPN of the user. And then we have the sign out button, which is here just for the sake of showing you that there is single sign-on in place. Actually, if there is single sign-on, there is no need to do the sign out. But for the sake of being clear in the demo, I wanted to provide also this scenario. And then I say that this is the card for the home card for my bot-powered ACE. Then, and this is fundamental, I need to create another card, which is the sign-in card. To create this one, I need to rely on the sign-in card view parameters factory method. And in this one, I have to provide the basic UI elements for the card in order to have the sign-in experience. So the ID, the title, and the text. But actually, the users, thanks to the single sign-on experience, will not see this card because this card is marked in the card view type as a sign-in SSO card. And because of that, this card will automatically implement the single sign-on experience, and the user will not see it. It will just the user will just go through it and will be brought to the home card once the single sign-on experience is completed. Then we also have additional cards which I don't care about because those are just for providing an error message or to confirm that the user signed out and stuff like that. Once you have such a SSO card, you also need to take care of implementing the actual single sign-on experience in code. So you have to override the onSign-in invoke async method, and in this one, relying on this type, which is available in the bot framework SDK since the version that I told you, so the 4.22.9, okay, we create an instance of this type. We provide a storage object which has to be implemented. You have to implement it, but you can find it already implemented in my sample. This one is a trivial one using an in-memory storage. You need to implement the iStorage interface, and you can do whatever you want. You can use any kind of storage. This one relies on memory just for the sake of simplicity. And here I provide the storage, and here we are. We provide the connection name that has been configured in the bot, okay? Once we have it, we say object on turn async, and we provide the information about the current request. By doing this, we will have the single sign-on in place. And once we have done that, we can always rely in the code base of our bot-powered ACE to the user token service, so that, for example, when we need to provide the actual username of the user, we have in this sample the getAuthenticated_user method, which will give me back the display name and the UPN, which I show in the home card. And how can I do that? Well, we have a getUserToken method, which relies on the context of my bot, and gets the user token client service instance and does the get user token async method invocation, providing a few settings about the current context, including, one more time, the connection name that we defined in the bot configuration. By doing that, we will get back a token for the user, which is actually the token that we saw before in the test connection UI. And by doing that, let me go back, we can get the token inside the response, and by doing that, we can then access, using the JOT security token type, all of the information, like, for example, the claim with the user principal name, or the claim with the display name, and so on and so forth. You can access the whole content of the token. And of course, this could even be a token that you want to retrieve to access a backend API on behalf of the user. We do almost the same when we want to do the sign out, so we still rely on the user token client, and we simply ask to do the sign out of the user through still through the user token client. So this is the implementation of the bot powered days. One more thing that we need to do is, in the manifest of our Microsoft 365 application, we need to specify that we want to support the security for our bot with that application that I showed you in Enter ID. So we need to specify in the web application info section the unique ID of the client ID of my application, as well as the resource URI of the application. This is the value that we configured as the unique URI right here when we decided to expose an API, so this value, okay? So by providing these settings and by providing in the list of the valid domains, the domain that we're going to use, here again I'm using ngrok, but in real scenarios you will use a real production URL, we are then ready to package and deploy the solution on the SharePoint Online catalog, for example, and by doing that, our bot para ACE will be able to provide the single sign-on experience to the end user. So quite a journey, but step by step, if you will follow this video, or even better, I would say, if you will follow the guidance that we have here in order to build a basic bot-powered ACE with .NET, and you have the link in the chat. And then following this specific article about how to implement the single sign-on experience, which again, step by step, will give you all of the instructions and all of the steps you need to go through to implement your own single sign-on based solution with bot-powered ACEs, you will be done and you will be able to enjoy this experience. So let me briefly go back to the slide deck before closing and giving the sharing back to Vesa. So just as a recap, you create the Azure bot in Azure, or you reuse an already existing one. You configure in the app backing your bot the authentication, the API permission, the expose an API. You create a custom scope and you pre-grant the SharePoint Online Web Client extensibility. Then you configure the auth connection settings in the Azure bot configuration, and you implement your custom code, implementing the on-sign-in invoke async, using the user token client to interact and to get the token of the user, and you configure in the manifest the web application info and the valid domains. Here again, and for the sake of completeness, you can find the links that I shared also in the chat with people following this demo live. And that said, thank you so much for following, and back to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Paolo, on that one. Really, really cool. A bit complicated, but again, that option is really designed for those partners or customers who have already the existing bot framework implementations in place. So you can basically get the same bot framework implementation also to power employee experiences capabilities. So that's kind of the design in that option, and that's where it's intended to be used. Now, the most simplistic way of doing extensibility in Viva Connection, we actually went through that option a few weeks back, is the Power Platform. So there's a Power Card support, Power Platform support. There's also SharePoint Framework support option in Viva Connection, and then low-code, no-code options there as well. So there are multiple options, as many of these things, in the same way as we can do multiple extensibility options for Microsoft Teams or the Copilot as well, like we have seen today. Anyway, next week's agenda, quick teaser on that one. I think we will have 2 demos. We do have an open slot for potentially for third one, but most likely we'll have 2 demos given that Thanksgiving is coming and especially US people are off for the rest of the week starting tomorrow. So we have Jose and Uday talking about the Microsoft Graph Data Connect, really, really cool capability as well for analytics and insights on what kind of things are available in SharePoint Online. So exporting information, doing analytics over there. And then Mark Windle, not March Windle, that's a nice typo written by me. Mark Windle will be here to sharing the latest on SharePoint Embedded. So what's happening there, new samples, new capabilities, new options on the SharePoint Embedded side as well. Now, in the meanwhile, feel free to join us on Discord. That is growing a lot as well. So if you are in a Discord, you can absolutely engage with the community on Discord platform as well. Not a competing thing comparing on any other engagement model, what we have in Microsoft, but a lot of people are actually in Discord. So we wanted to actually give this option available as well. And also, please do give us feedback. Super important for us to understand what works, what doesn't work, and also showcase for our management that these calls are valuable. So actually your quotes and input in here are super important. So we're able to keep on doing these calls in the future as well. But that's it for now. Thank you for joining on this one. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, John. Thank you, Paolo. Really, really cool demos today. The recording will be available within 24 hours at KMS Community YouTube channel. That's our Microsoft Community Learning YouTube channel. And we will publish updates in Twitter, Blue Sky, LinkedIn as we get the updates and the recording out. Next call is on December 3rd, as mentioned. So see you next time and next week, unless you will be in the call on Thursday, which will happening as well this week. But thank you for this one. Thanks, everybody. Let's stay in touch. Cheers. Bye-bye.